You're probably aware of this situation already. Bob Chapek is no longer CEO of the Walt Disney Company and has been replaced by former CEO Bob Iger. Explore any part of social media at the moment and you'll see long-winded discussions about how this changes everything for the flailing company amidst several years of controversy. And in fairness, it changes a lot, just not in the way that many might be hoping for. It's a late Sunday night when Bob Chapek gets a call from Disney during the Elton John concert being live-streamed on Disney+. You're out. And that's it. No PR spin, no official memo, nothing that says Chapek had gone to live on the farm with your cousins a few states over while you're in school. Instead, every employee within the Walt Disney Company simply received an email telling them that Bob Iger had returned. From the man himself. So, how did we get here? Many forget that Chapek was hand-picked by Iger to take over the company as CEO upon his departure. Initially, Tom Staggs and Jay Rasulo were groomed as potential candidates as well, but after several disputes which saw them leave the company, Chapek became the clear choice. Bob Chapek became CEO when Iger stepped down on February 25, 2020. Just weeks before the world would be plunged into a global pandemic. With no parks and no movies in theaters, Chapek was in charge of Disney during what would arguably be their most stressful years of operation. Thankfully, the company came out on top, but not without its scars. The pandemic gave credence to sometimes difficult, sometimes problematic, and often just plain bizarre decisions. But the spotlight was really placed on Chapek after the world had settled and the excuse of COVID-19 got a little exhausting. It was clear that Chapek had no idea how to steer Disney in the right direction. With every earnings call announcing further losses and failures, additional jobs and positions would be cut. Many of these were creatives. And Iger wasn't exactly complacent in watching the company he grew simply wither away. Since leaving the company altogether last year, Mr. Iger had been known to dominate lunch conversations around Los Angeles, with talks of how he thought Mr. Chapek had taken Disney in the wrong direction. Some associates said Iger would fixate on the topic so much that it became uncomfortable. At another time, Iger even told one confidant that Bob Chapek was killing the soul of the company. Bob Chapek didn't understand the importance of creatives within a creative company, and equally the influence that said creative company had on culture, such as his refusal to say anything about the Don't Say Gay bill early on, which turned a lot of people against him and placed unnecessary pressure on the company. He also rubbed many individuals in Hollywood the wrong way, with a major example being the Scarlett Johansson situation. He thought he and Disney were untouchable. Unfortunately for him, Disney wouldn't have his back for long. Things really turned when Chapek fired Peter Rice back in June. Chapek saw Rice as a threat to his position and removed him from the business in a 7-minute meeting regarding a major restructuring. This move probably made Chapek feel safe, but it made many executives feel uneasy, with many now wondering when their meeting would be called or when they would be thrown under the bus. Disney's board of directors had apparently been at work looking to replace Chapek since summer of 22, with these events slowly ramping up the pace, which leads us to last week. At 3 p.m. on Friday, the board reached out to Bob Iger, and then on Sunday night it was announced he was back. Considering that Chapek was his decision, Iger felt he needed to go back and clean up his mess. So what's next? First things first, don't expect huge sweeping changes to be made overnight. While in the theme park realm, the pandemic necessitated a lot of changes to be made in rapid succession, any rush to update or change things again could have an even more negative effect on the brand and the company. Of course, Iger's familiarization with the company and how it ticks will allow him to make speedier changes than an entirely new CEO would be able to. So what are his next moves? What's unfortunately likely to stay and what's likely to change? I feel the most major changes will come to the streaming branch of the company, as things like the parks are making money running themselves. At the most recent earnings call, it was announced that Disney Plus reported a $1.5 billion operating loss in the previous quarter, with shows like The Incredible Andor failing to move the subscriber needle enough. Streaming is a huge money sink for any company, and Disney is no different. You need to spend huge amounts of money to keep your subscribers paying their $10 a month. One of Iger's first big changes came less than 24 hours after he resumed the role of CEO. He fired Chapek's right-hand man, Kareem Daniel, the penny-pinching chairman of Disney's media and entertainment division, who oversaw Disney Plus amongst many other branches of the company. In firing Kareem Daniel, Iger announced a new structure that puts more decision-making back in the hands of our creative teams and rationalizes cost. Of course, to us here, the changes to streaming and media aren't as interesting as the possible changes to the parks and resorts branch of the company. Iger was apparently alarmed by increases in prices at Disney theme parks that Mr. Chapek argued would boost revenue and limit overcrowding, alleging Chapek of being too responsive to changes in Disney's share price, ignoring any possible negative PR those choices may bring. Of course, we can't paint Chapek here as the ultimate villain and Iger as the pure hero. A lot of the changes to the parks, such as Genie Plus, were likely already in the pipeline when Iger was previously CEO, and they likely would have still been delivered, just with more tact and finesse than the heavy-handed and clearly money-hungry approach from Chapek. But let's not forget, Iger loved money as much as the next CEO, with additions such as Golden Oak, huge expansions of DVC, large upscale resorts, and more, all coming under his watch. But allow us to get our prediction hats on and say some things we think will or may happen in the future with the parks, thanks to the changeover. The easiest win for Iger would be to simply remove the park reservation system. An easy thing to do which would result in a huge positive news push for the company. Another win we predict is the official killing of the Lake Nona deal that would have forced Imagineering to move to Florida to chase tax credits. I feel Imagineering will stay right where they belong, in Glendale, California. This changeover also allows Ron DeSantis and the Disney Company to put their Reedy Creek Improvement District beef behind them, which we're sure they both actually want to do. And RCID will likely still exist almost exactly as it is in the years to come, maybe with a slight name change or a removal of things like the nuclear power plant portion that they would never have used anyway. Another thing we will be watching closely in the coming months and years is Disney's recent acquisition of the mostly completed Global Dream 2 cruise ship we talked about last week. Apparently behind the scenes, Disney Cruise Line didn't want to purchase this ship, but Chapek went above them, desperate to turn around his reputation, wanting to be seen like Iger, who made the big business moves. With two ships already on the horizon in the next few years, it'll be interesting to see if this one is delayed or ultimately cancelled, no matter how good the deal they got on it was. Other things such as the Galactic Star Cruiser seem like a peak quality Iger product with a peak Chapek price tag, so it'll be interesting to see what comes of it in the future, with them this week announcing their first ever discount of 30% off for DVC guests who pay with points. Ultimately, things like Genie Plus may also see a rework, but I don't see it going away altogether. As a whole, quality in the Disney parks realm might go up, but don't expect prices to fall. Disney is already filling the parks at the current price, so good luck on convincing a public company to reduce that easy income. 9 a.m. next Monday, Bob Iger will be speaking directly to Disney employees in a town hall, marking his people-first return to the company by discussing the future of Disney and answering questions for cast about what's next for the company. Ultimately, though, this is a second chance for Iger. The first time he picked a successor, things didn't exactly go to plan. So the next 2 years, his real priority is deciding who comes next to replace him, because that will be a huge part of his legacy. But over to you. You excited that Iger is back? And what big changes do you think he will bring to the company? Let us know in the comments section. And a huge shout out to our supporters over on Patreon who help us do what we love. For ReviewTyme, I'm Luke. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing.